Hello and happy Monday, March 23rd. Bluey is at Disneyland. Hannah Montana has a big reunion tomorrow, and college basketball is marching into their Sweet 16. So a lot of fun stuff happening in entertainment, sports, Disneyland, all of the above. Um, and it's the start of a new week, and I am slowly waking up here. Um, but this week we are going to be talking a lot of live streaming. Yeah, unless there's breaking news in other places, obviously I'll bring it up. But live streaming is going to be the topic of the week for me and on this channel. Thank you so much for everyone that has been tuning in. And before I get started, if you guys have any questions, leave comments below, especially live streaming this week. I'll include those questions and answer them away. But this first episode of 4, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more talk of live streaming in weeks to come, months to come. This is not going to be just a now thing. This will probably be, ongoing. I'm going to kind of hit the key points and stuff like that. And I'm going to try and keep them relatively short. I'm not going to not talk a whole lot, ramble that is, so like I'm doing right now. But let's jump right on into it. And one of the key things I want to talk about live streaming inside the parks is, well, today I want to talk about you guys, the people that viewed in, mods, things like that. I want to talk about that, but I also want to kind of talk about the changes, and that's kind of where I'm going to start. And this is a very important one. I did a lot of my streaming on TikTok between 2022 and 2023. Basically, it was, I tallied it up, it was like I streamed like 500 days in between those 2 years. My knowledge of TikTok live streaming really comes from that time. I did obviously a little streaming in 24. I did a little streaming in 25. But the last time I actually think I've done a stream was probably about 9 to 10 months ago. So if you're coming in here expecting tips of live streaming now, unfortunately, this may not be the episode for you, or little series for you. Unfortunately, when I think of streaming, I think of a time in live streaming that doesn't exist anymore. And like whenever I think about live streaming and going back and doing it and everything like that, I have to check myself a little bit, because I have to remind myself the era, the time, the what I want to do on my live stream. It's just not there. TikTok live streaming has changed so much over the last 5 years that it, I don't want to say TikTok sold out, but TikTok kind of made it in a way that they just really focus in on making money. Unfortunately, they're really, really gung ho on pushing creators that are going to make them money. Straight, simple, sad. I always went in with the belief that if you create good content that people want to see, you'll get pushed out, and people will come back. And um, in 2022, when I first started, I believe there was some degree of backing to that. I think there was, oh cool, you're engaging, you're getting a lot of people to comment, you're getting a lot of people to like, be there, spend a lot of time here, they're interested in what you're showing. Um, Unfortunately that changed quite a bit, especially in, starting in 2023. Um, and especially into 24, and then, definitely in 25, and then kind of what I've heard from people and why a lot of people have stopped live streaming on TikTok is TikTok just cares about making money. They know when they push out the live stream, it's the one piece of content that they have no business having to pay out on. If a posted video gets 1 million views, and that's a big creator, they're going to have to pay out money to that creator for, creating that content. If a live streamer has 1 million views, the way it's set up, TikTok pays that person nothing, zero. And actually, they push like crazy for people to buy their coin and spend it on that creator. And all they're doing with that is, they're making money. So they like kicking out the live streamers because they don't have to pay anything for it. And they actually make money. Granted, it's not like tons of money, but it adds up. So they're making money off of these live streams, not having to spend it out. So it's kind of like a reversed content creation situation, people making money. And that kind of makes me sad, just in the aspect of I was always and still am in the belief that if you make good content and you make stuff that is interesting to the viewer and everything like that, you should be rewarded and you should be getting, more views and all that stuff. And that's just not the case. I go throughout 2024 and 25 when I spontaneously, live streamed. I would always get and I'm sure this is still the same thing to the day. I would always get the messages every 5 to 10 minutes saying, hey, make sure that you're pushing coins to your audience, or, it's not this blunt, but they're like, or we're not going to have you on the FYP anymore. Not that blunt, but basically the same message. I started getting a lot of those messages of like, hey, push your gifts. And unfortunately, I'm not going to speak for everyone right now, but when you come across a live stream, parks or non-parks, that's why so many people are pushing, is because they want to be on the FYP and everything like that. It's like, TikTok is kind of like stranglehold the whole thing. That's why a lot of live streams suck. So on TikTok these days, it used to be so great, and now they're just not as much. So unfortunately, I think I go back to a time whenever I go on to my, my live stream kick of like, oh, I want to go do this again. I really want to, do it for a day or whatever. I really go back to the 2022 days when it was very free and, just do what you want to do. And I miss those days. The 2022 days when I started streaming, it was a little bit like the Wild Wild West. And, I, from day one streaming at Disneyland, really had a golden rule of 3. And, I tried my best to always stick to these 3 things. I'm a ghost. I'm a ghost. That's the number one thing. I'm a ghost. Therefore, everyone around me is more important. If I'm disrupting any other park goers, anything like that, I failed. That's number one. That's why I always put myself in the back of rides. If you ever saw me stream in the park, I did a lot of weird angle stuff that kept me low, away, brightness all the way to 0. I try to be as much of a ghost. I didn't talk. I really just, I said as little as I possibly could. Obviously, engaged with the chat when not on a ride, answering questions, all that stuff. But that was kind of my always my golden rule of number 1 of 3 was, you're a ghost, stay quiet, stay hidden in a way. And this is why a lot of people also told me throughout the years I was so hard to find, which came as an advantage / disadvantage. the big disadvantage was, I, and this is kind of jumping ahead, but I love meeting people and I love talking to people. I love talking Disney to people. There's so many people that have no idea who I am, even to the day. There's a lot of creators I always wanted to meet, and they also never knew who I was. Um, I've had people, like, when I'm like not on live stream, like I've heard people literally talk about my account and be like, "Oh, I follow him," and they're standing right next to me, and they have no idea that I'm me, um, which is crazy. Uh, yeah, but golden rule was always ghost host. Disney's number one. The park goers are number one. You don't know who this is the last time that they're ever going to be on the ride or in the parks or whatnot. I was kind of like the ghost co-host. I'm not important. CMs take priority. Guests take priority. All that stuff. That was kind of my number one golden rule. And if I ever felt like, okay, this is no longer doable to follow that rule, we're done. The second thing was creating great content for you guys. So showing angles, things like that, making it the best it possibly could. It goes back to the whole thing. If you ever saw me in the parks and you ever like rode a ride with me, I had each kind of ride, because I rid so much, which I was lucky to do. I had each ride kind of in a cinematic, okay, this is how I'm going to film it, and this is how it's going to go. Pirates is actually probably the best example of this. I'd always throw myself in row 6, and it's funny because I would angle myself where I could move around on the bench without anyone really noticing, and I would almost slant myself like almost at like a 60-degree angle at most of the part, or 66-degree angle most of the ride, so I could actually keep an eye on the boat behind me, because they were a whole hell of a lot more important than anything else, because I didn't want to disturb them. So it's not even the people in front in my boat, it's people behind me to make sure I'm not messing with them. So I'd actually use the lever on the pirate boat to make sure that it was blocking my phone. So it was like, here's like, it's not very big, but you get a little thing, but you're using like angles to make it like, okay, cool, you guys are getting a good view, but I'm also not disturbing them in the back. Pirates is always a good example of that, because it was like, and I had that one pretty down to the wire of like, okay, make sure no one knows don't want to disturb anybody. Obviously, there's a lot of people filming. It's funny, when I had a boat once. This is me just kind of being ADHD here. I had a boat once where I was like 15 people in the boat, and that was the only content creators. It was all, people that are obviously from all over the country world. It was like 15 people, 8 people were filming, and I was like, I don't know what I should do here. Like, I saw, it was like, this is obviously tourists, everything like that. I was like, all right, is this the golden rule here of like, I can break it now, everyone else? No, I still did my thing. I was like, I'm still going to keep it low, but I was like, this is funny. Like, I could just see all the bright lights, and I'm like, But, I had each ride kind of in a way where it was like, and there was certain ones that were definitely tougher than others. The one that always comes to mind was Big Thunder Mountain, and that's because the back row is actually the best row. So I would just kind of take what I got from Big Thunder, and luckily it's fast enough that I would just use the angles, and I would use kind of my chest in a way to block it off. And then there was rides like Indiana Jones, get row 3 and just pray to the Lord and just be like, all right, we're just throwing it up, and, just get the back corner and just kind of reach it out of the thing. And I always was strapped in. I always had kind of some sort of thing that, held the phone, not only in my hand, but also kind of like a string towards it. So nothing ever went wrong, but, I always had something like that. But so, number one, park goers. Number 2 was you guys, trying to give you guys the best view possible. That I wasn't just showing the floor or anything like that. But the importance level, me being very last, my own safety and everything like that, obviously important. I kind of had 1, 2, 3 park goers, you guys, and then 50 layers of dirt, and then you know how I felt. That's kind of how it went on the totem pole of um, me streaming. But park goers and the CMs especially, they don't have an easy job being out in the sun every single day, dealing with, you know, guests, tourists, locals, everything across the board. Um, you know, whatever they say, and this is not just for live streaming, this is for obviously park goers as well. Even if you think you know something different, they're always right. So, you know, the cast members are always right. Doesn't matter what they say. Doesn't matter. There's a reason for what they're saying. So, like, there's like a path that's closed off or something like that. Something probably happened there 15 minutes ago that you don't know. They work there. They have an earpiece. Or they have people talking to them. You don't. Pretty straightforward on that one. So, yeah, that was kind of always my mindset on that. Which now kind of going back to something I mentioned just a few minutes ago. One of my favorite things about live streaming was purely the people. Purely the people that came into my chat, the people that I was able to meet, the individuals that were kind enough and just shockingly blew my mind that they were willing to mod for me and be there so many days. Without the mods, without the people that were in the chat, I obviously never would have been able to go as far as I went. And I am forever grateful because I'm still sitting here today talking Disney, and, you know, that's incredible. So I owe my whole account to not only my mods, but, you know, the viewers. And I know there's a lot of different live streamers. I'm going back to 22, 23. I'll talk more, you know, live streamers today and on a different video. But in 22, 23, there was a lot of people live streaming even then. And, you know, the amount of people that always came back was awesome. And I just tried my best to give you guys some joy, Disney love, wherever you may have been in the world. That was always my number one goal. I mean, some people may not believe it, but my number one goal was just show Disney. Just get on rides, do it as fast as possible, but just kind of find a community of like-minded people that really enjoyed Disney. And I met a lot of friends, and I met a lot of people through live streaming. And even to the day, I know it's been nearly, you know, 3 years since, you know, well, 2.5 years since, you know, I've been doing this every single day, but there's still usernames that I'm like, I wonder what happened to this person. I wonder where they went. You know, there's something special about it's live content. It's different for me, and I'm sure everyone's different, but for me, the live content is so much different than the posted content. It's real time. So there's kind of that special connection of like, oh, cool, we're both viewing the same thing at 9 in the morning. Granted, a screen divides us, but you might be in Indiana. I'm here in California. It was really cool, and it's the only thing on social media of my 15 years of social media that really felt that much connection, I guess. Yeah, I don't have much more to say outside of that. I mean, it's special. So, which gets me to my next point of meeting people in the parks was by far the coolest thing ever. And I was probably one of the worst people to meet in the parks because it usually would happen during a live stream. And I had my golden rules of be a ghost. And they would always, people would always come to me super excited and everything like that. And I'm like, I'm internally shocked and thrilled and like, oh my God, people actually want to meet me and talk to me. This is the coolest thing ever. Um, then I'm on a live stream too, so it's like, all right, throw it to a side, do something with it. But I'm forever grateful and humbled and just shocked to a way that I got to a spot that people wanted to actually, they knew my name and actually wanted to talk to me and meet me in the parks. I mean, by far, out of all the things that happened to me throughout, like invites and, different experiences and marathons, that's by far the number one thing. And I am sorry to everyone that did meet me. I wish I was better, because there was a lot of interactions I walked away from in my mind and be like, God, that person now hates me. Just like, all right, that person probably just unfollowed me. Because I'm like, man, I wish I was better at these interactions. And, I'll just name drop someone really quick. I've been around Megan, the magical millennial. I've walked around the parks with her many times, and I see her how she interacts with fans and people that know her, and it's like A+. It's great. And then I give myself like a D-. I'm like, oh God, just be more like Megan. Just be better with people. But by far, it was the best. I mean, I love meeting everyone, and even to the day, when people stop me, and they recognize me, love it. Um, as I said, I love talking Disney and meeting up with people, and in certain cases, actually, friendships have started off of that. Me purely meeting people in the parks. I've had people literally ride rides with me by accident, and then we've started friendships off of that. It's just such a cool thing. This Disney community, and I give it all thanks that my account blew up because of live streaming. And yeah, and I'll talk more stories throughout the week and kind of get more into the strategy of what I used to do, and yeah, really break down my experience. But this is kind of more of the intro and episode of, you know, me talking about you guys, of how important you guys were to me. You really were the whole stream in the end. Just kind of my golden rules of, other park goers were the number one thing that I always cared about. Um, Actually, I'll to share this. I totally forgot about this. So when I did stream, I'll throw higher than I usually do because it's the camera right now. But it was funny when I was streaming. It was almost like a car. I was, out looking in the thing, and then it was kind of rotating between wherever I was walking. Making sure everything around me, and then the camera here, and making sure everything's good here, and then taking a look at the chat. And it was almost like a three-way circle of constant, boom, boom, boom. It's like looking at the street and then looking at like your miles per hour, and yeah, it's like always like a circle. And it's always kind of just being, yeah, that stupid stuff that that just kind of comes into my mind. I was always moving too. I was always moving. I never, and you guys probably all knew that. Like, never wanted to sit still. Never wanted to eat. Just go, ride as much as I possibly can. And Disney made it really easy. Universal made it really easy. Show how great these places are, and that's what I did. But yeah, so I just wanted to cover the fact that TikTok has changed. It sucks. It's not what it used to be. It's just a big money grab these days, which is really sad. But you guys were awesome, and I'm very grateful for all you guys, and kind of my golden rules. But we'll talk more experiences, strategy, all those stuff throughout the week. This was a little bit longer of an episode, but thank you so much if you've made it this far. There's my intro. to live streaming at Disney. So tomorrow, I'll see y'all later.